Hello, good evening, everyone. Hope you all are having a pleasant evening. By the time we wait for others, can I have can I know that what is your name, what is the current position that you hold, and where are you joining from? Can you please use the chat section and let me know what is the position that you hold, where are you from? Yes, I can see it from Aruna. Okay. Yes, in case you have any doubts in between the session, you can or mention it in the chat section. If I do not see it instantly, I'll always come back to you. Okay. So, Yashwan, Nikita, and others, can I know your name? Where are you from? What position do you hold currently? Mr. Vishwanathan, good evening. A very good evening to you. Can we start from you? Is anybody texting? Mr. Arun Kumar, Velu, where are you people from? Yes, I can hear from Jyoti. Yes, Jyoti Katole, you're doing your master's in biotechnology. You're a student. Nice. Yashwant, you're a student, MBA HR and marketing management. Very nice. Where are you from? Which city do you reside in currently? Others, maybe have your small introduction, please.
Hey everyone, good evening. We are allowing everyone to unmute themselves to give their introduction for just 5 minutes.
Okay,
Is it
nice.
okay, Priyanka?
Yes, absolutely fine. Yes, if you want to speak, right, rather than texting in the chat, if you want to speak, you're welcome. Yashwant, you're from Gudivada, Andhra Pradesh. Very nice. Others, if you want to speak, you're most welcome. Mr. Arun Kumar, you're from Coimbatore. You are doing your MBA HR. Very nice.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
This is Dr. Tamai Chelli.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm working as a professor.
Yes.
I just wanted to attend your workshop. That's why I'm
Yeah.
attending, ma'am.
Nice, ma'am. Which subject do you deal with?
Soft skills, ma'am.
Okay, very nice. So it's very relevant to you.
Yes, ma'am. That is why.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, Miss Sanjana, you're pursuing your BTech and you're from Hyderabad. Very nice. Vivo, what's your name? Aurangabad, Maharashtra. Very nice. Mantrias, you're from Madurai, Tamil Nadu. Nice. What are you currently pursuing? You're Mr. Velu, you're from Cheyar, Tiruvannamalai district, Tamil Nadu, and you're a student, second year student of MBA. Very nice. Anushka, you're from Dehradun. Yes. So yes, if you want to speak, you're most welcome. Uttarakhand, very nice. Most of you are from MBA background here. That's what I'm sensing, right? So we'll be starting the session at around in another 5-10 minutes, right? 6:10 exact to be specific. Meanwhile, tell me, what is it that you're expecting to learn from this particular workshop? What is it that you're looking forward for? Whenever we speak about interview skills, we always speak about, it from the perspective of the person who is getting interviewed. How should you behave in an interview, right? How exactly should your body language be? What kind of questions should you be prepared for? But this is something different wherein we are speaking about interviewing skills from the perspective of the interviewer, the one who is asking questions. So how should you be prepared? So what exactly are you looking forward for? What is it that you want to learn or take away from this particular workshop? Can we have your responses, please? You can type or you can unmute yourself and speak. Anybody? What is it that you're looking forward for? Salary negotiation, okay? How to handle situational and behavioral questions, okay? Very nice. I want to improve my confidence. Yes, Yashwant, if that's the case, you should unmute yourself and start speaking right away. That's how you'll start building your confidence. When you have the opportunity now, Speak, right? Take the opportunity, talk. Okay. Yes. What else? What other things? Okay, Khyati says to clear various aptitude and person tests. Okay, not getting a job because of communication. Okay, Vivek, what exactly do you mean by communication? Are you finding it difficult to express your thoughts, or what is it? Where do you think you're going wrong? A bit of self-analysis is what we need, right? So tell me, what exactly is the thing? What else are we looking forward for here? Anybody else? Yashwant, you want to unmute yourself and speak? And the same with Mr. Vivek. Do you want to do that? Try. Okay, fine. Okay. From what I perceive here is the fact that, the crowd is a mixture of both the things. People who are pursuing their MBAs and who are going to be the future HRs, and also the ones who are looking forward or who are facing interviews, right? So how exactly should you be prepared when you have to face an interview, one? And secondly, if you are an interviewer, how should you be prepared to take up an interview? So it's a mixed crowd of both the things. So not to worry, we'll be dealing with both the aspects. Okay. So that's one thing. With that, I think since we do not have any more responses here, so let me begin the session. Okay. So it's about, okay, I have one more message here. Yes, Mr. Sandeep Gade, he says HR wanted to join an immediate basis. How to convince to serve 30 days notice period. Okay, very nice. We will take up all these questions. Okay, do not worry. We will deal with all these questions at the end of it, right? So, and as and when we are dealing with certain topics, we will, kind of try to address these aspects. Okay, so let's begin the session. Okay, so it will be from both the perspectives. So do not worry. If I'm speaking about, how an interviewer should conduct an interview, do not worry. It's for someone who is doing their MBA or going to be the future HRs. And when I'm saying how exactly do you have to face these questions when it comes from the HR part of view, it's for someone who is seeking jobs and who wants to be prepared or ace in the interviews that they are going to face. Okay, so it's going to be a mix of both the things. Fine, let's move ahead and see what exactly is the agenda for the day. Okay, I hope my screen is visible, right? I've changed the slide. So the agenda for the day is something like this. Okay, it's going to be we are going to look at things, what are going to be. An interview is a process that happens, but prior to that, there are many pre-processes that happens, and also post the interview, there are a few things that happens, right? So what exactly is this? What is the pre-interview process? How does the interview process happen? And post-interview, what are the other aspects that are taken care of? Okay, we'll be seeing all these three things. Okay. Second, we'll be learning what are some of the interview etiquettes that you have to know, right? Be it from the interviewer's perspective or an interviewee's perspective. What exactly are the etiquettes that you're expected to maintain? Okay. Thirdly, interview skills. What exactly are some of the skill sets that you're expected to have? Okay. And fourthly, how exactly does the interview process happen? How do you start an interview? How does it proceed, right? And how do you end an interview? So all these things we'll be learning here. And one of the most important aspects that I'm sure most of you are looking forward for in today's workshop is the type of questions that gets asked, right? You have a resume, you do not know, they can ask you questions from anywhere, but we will be segregating these questions in different baskets so that it's easier for you to understand and be prepared to face. And even if you are an interviewer, you will be getting knowledge as per, where exactly to pick the questions from. How do you frame your questions, right? So this will be one of the most important aspects that, I'm sure most of you are looking forward for, right? And also next is expectations and exceptions. What are the basic expectations that they look forward for in an interview? And what are the exceptions when a candidate has some other skill sets that are needed? How do you identify those exceptions, right? And how do you make space for that? That's one aspect. And information to be conveyed to the interviewee. If you are an interviewer, it's not just about asking questions, it's also about giving information. So what type of information should you be giving to the interviewee? That's one thing. And if you are a person who is facing an interview, what kind of questions do you get asked, right? So you can ask the interviewer, right? That's one thing. In the chat section, some of you said, right, salary negotiation. Can you ask about salaries there? In case it's like it's given, can you start the negotiation at that point in time? Does salary negotiation happen at an interview phase, or does it happen post the selection process, right? These aspects we will look for. Interview documentation. When you are conducting an interview, this is specifically for the ones who will be taking up interviews, right? Who will be conducting interviews. There are certain documentations that you're expected to follow, that you're expected to keep up with, right? So what exactly are these documentations? What will it consist of? Those are one aspect. And also feedback is very important, right? If you're a recruiter or if you are an HR who is hiring for a specific job position, right? You will report back to the team, or you will be reporting back to the hiring managers or the hiring team. So what are you doing when you're reporting back? You're giving feedback, right? So what exactly how should your feedback be? What exactly are the information that it must consist? That's something that we'll be learning. And also, if you are a candidate and you have asked for a feedback about your interview process, then what exactly are the informations that one can reveal? Right. So these are some of the things that we will be exploring in terms of feedback management. Okay. So broadly, this is the agenda that's set for the today. Okay. So let's begin. Let's start with the pre and post interview process. That is, when an interview process happens, what exactly happens before the interview and what exactly happens post the interview. So first, if you are an interviewer, or even if you are a person who's facing an interview, you must be thorough. By being thorough, what do I mean? You must carefully go through the information that's given for the job requirement, right? What is the position to be filled? At what level is it, right? Is it the position of a beginner? Is it something for the position of a mid manager, right? What is it? What level is the position in, right? Which organization you're looking forward for? What are the technical skills that they are looking forward for? What are the personality traits that you should look forward for, or the job poster is looking forward for? What is exactly the requirement of the job that you must be thorough with? Okay, on both the ends, if you're an interviewer or an interviewee, right? Most of the times it so happens that, you just read the position, what is the technical qualification needed, if there are some softwares that they have to be thorough with. These are the basic aspects that you kind of, explore and go ahead with. But there is much more thoughts that's needed to be given, right? What is specific to that? How is the team which is hiring? What is the kind of team culture that they will be looking forward for? Right? These are some of the aspects that the interviewer has to look forward for. In terms of an interviewee, you have to see what exactly is the job requirement, like which sphere is it dealing with, what exactly are the personality traits that might need, right? And in case you have any questions in terms of the culture of the organization or the team aspects, right? You have to look forward for those things, have those questions in hand, so that an interview, see, it's not just a process wherein an interviewer asks you questions and you answer. It's also an opportunity for you to ask questions, know things that you want to understand or kind of get to know even before you join a organization. So both these aspects have to be addressed. Okay. Second, as an interviewer, you will be selecting candidates based on their resume. Obviously, when you post a job, the next step is you will be receiving a lot of resumes, right? So first thing is you will be screening the resumes. Second, you will also be going through the candidate's LinkedIn profile. Now, why is it important to go through the LinkedIn profile of a candidate? Because there it's about, what are the thoughts of the person? How do they present themselves? What are the thoughts behind, that they are with, right? Like, for example, if they're speaking about one particular aspect or they have shared some post, right? So it showcases what their thought is. They're supporting something or they might be advocating something. So what exactly is the candidate for? Because it's not just about technical skills. Ultimately, you're also hiring a human being, right? So what are the thought sets that they come with, right? To assess those things. And also you will find people who have recommended them, appreciated them, right? Certain certifications that comes or that they post on the LinkedIn profile, right? So all these things and the number of connections, the network that they have. Certain positions requires the candidates to have a good network, right? So when you assess the LinkedIn profile of a candidate, you will get an idea of all these aspects. So you receive a lot of resumes. One, you shortlist the candidates based on the information given on the resume. You go through the resume, check the basic fitment to the position, whether if this person is someone who can be hired, right? You have a slight guess and you kind of have a pool of candidates there after going through the LinkedIn profile as well. Now, when I come to the people who are facing interviews, it's very important for you to maintain your LinkedIn profile, right? You have to maintain your LinkedIn profile. Now, what do I mean by that? Post things like, what are your talents? What are your, the technical skills? Have posts regarding that. Support posts, follow people, right? If you have a prior work experience or you have done your internship somewhere in some organization, ask them to write recommendations for you in the LinkedIn profile. That will help you in terms of getting highlighted or getting that extra brownie point when compared to other candidates, right? So now it's like, in today's era, no person's net worth is kind of, assessed or measured based on the amount or the money that they have. But it's mostly measured in terms of the network capability that they have. So network is currently your net worth. So what is the network that you, business network that you have formed, right? That becomes very important. So it's very important for you to maintain a good LinkedIn profile of yourself. Okay. Thirdly, know how, this is for the interviewer. You must know how many candidates are there in the pipeline and when will, and based on the, time that you have, what will be the hiring process that you will follow, whether you will be conducting an interview or whether you'll be asking your team to conduct the basic interview, right? So all those processes will be decided even before the interview happens. Okay. And during the interview, an interviewer must take note of the candidate's fit for the role. What do you think are the aspects of the in the candidate's profile that matches the job requirement? You will take a note of all those things. If there are some aspects which are exceptional, like I said, maybe the job position doesn't require it, but that can be add in as an extra positive aspect to the candidate, right? So you will take note of all those things during the interview. And finally, as an interviewer, you will compare and analyze the various, candidates you have interviewed. What are the positives and negatives of this candidate? How is this candidate better when compared to the other one? So you will analyze each and every candidate. Remember every other small details that you would have, encountered in the interview. Based on that, you form or assess and decide which candidates are ideal or which candidates are fit to be, hired for this particular position. If you are the decision maker, then you will select the best candidate out of the ones that you have received. If not, you will propose the final list of candidates to your hiring manager or the team, right, for which you're hiring, and they will decide which candidate they want to hire. Okay, so these are some of the processes that happens pre and post an interview. It's very important for you to understand these things because you cannot just come and take an interview and finish it. There are other things that you have to take care of, and these are some of those. Okay, and also from the perspective of an interviewee, right? You must ensure your LinkedIn profile is up to date because now every other position, even in terms of the position for a beginner, they will check your LinkedIn profile. So you have to maintain it well. Okay, so these are some of the aspects that you have to take care of when it comes to pre and post interview process. Okay, now let me speak about the interviewer etiquette, right? As an interviewer, when you're conducting an interview, you are expected to maintain certain etiquette. Now, what do I mean by this? Here's a small list that you can look at, right? First one, put your interviewees at ease. Obviously, when the interviewee gets into the room or, gets into the process of interview, they are a bit nervous. So when they are nervous, obviously you cannot expect them to give the best answers, right? So your task is to put them at ease. Have a small talk. Now, what do I mean by a small talk? Have a small, informal interaction. Say, hello, where are you from? Like, for example, just a small talk interaction that we had just at the beginning of this workshop, right? Where are you from? How is the traffic? How is the weather? Are you doing fine? Did you have your breakfast? Nothing wrong. These small talks helps in terms of putting the interviewees in comfort zone. And it is your duty to ensure that, you put other people at ease, because that's when you can expect the right responses from them. So putting the interviewees at ease is one of your basic duties or the basic etiquette that's expected from an interviewer. Okay. Secondly, you have to be attentive. You have to pay attention to the candidate, right? You ask a question and then you're busy involved in some other aspect in your system. You're not even looking at the other person. It doesn't work that way, right? When a communication is happening, especially an interview is a two-way communication that happens, right? So it's not just the verbals, like you're not just listening to what the interviewee is saying. It's also the non-verbals that you're paying attention for. How is the interviewee answering? How is the person answering? How is their body language? Are they fiddling around with things? Are they being nervous? Are they shaking their legs? How is their expression? Do they appear nervous? Because communication is one thing wherein it's not just verbals, it's also the non-verbals that are involved. So you have to pay attention to both of them. That's when you will get a cumulative or a complete picture of what the other person is saying. Because if you understand communication, more than 50% of the communication happens through non-verbals. And to the interviewees, to the people who are attending interviews, this aspect is very important. It not just matters how you speak, but also how are your non-verbals. When you're speaking, we use a lot of fillers. Mm, right? All these things we do use. Those are called fillers. Take care of it. It showcases that you're nervous. It showcases that you do not have the required information, but then you're trying to fill up the gap, right? So take care of those non-verbals. Be confident. Look at the other person in the eyes. Have a genuine smile. Maintain a good body language. When I say maintaining a good body language, it's about having an open and forward body language. Means what? Do not cross your legs. Do not keep your hands folded. Interviewers also have to observe when a person's body language is like, he or she is closing their hands, leaning backwards, that means they are not that interested. But on the other hand, when their hands are open, they haven't crossed their legs and they have moved a bit forward, that means they are interested in it. So pay attention to the body language. Interviewees in terms of maintaining a good body language, interviewers in terms of observing what the body language of the other person says. Okay. Thirdly, represent your organization well. This is specifically for the interviewers. When you are speaking to an interviewee, when you're, taking interview of another person, you are representing your organization. You're not just your name. Like, for example, if my name is Priyanka, it's not just like I'm not just Priyanka. I'm a HR from my organization who is interviewing you, right? So I'm representing an organization. So you have to be careful with how you behave. Okay. And fourthly, following protocol when hosting interview meals. This is mostly in terms of, interviews wherein you are hiring for leadership positions and big companies. That's when it's like, you will have, lunch hosted for lunch or anything, food or any sort of things, beverages hosted for the interviewees. In that case, you have to follow the protocol. Now, what do I mean by protocol? It's something that's specific to organizations. What exactly will you offer? When will it be offered? Right? This is mainly for leadership positions. So such protocols you must know and follow it. Okay. Next, you have to be ethical and avoid legal issues. right? The person who is interviewing you, or if you are an interviewer, you are a person at the end of it. You come with your own biases, you come with your own preferences, you come with your own hatred or kind of negative feeling towards something. But when you are present there as an interviewer, you must keep all your biases at bay, right? You must maintain that objectivity. That's very important. If the person who is facing an interview feels that you're not being fair, feels that you're being or having a biased attitude, then if they wish, they can take up a legal action. So always avoid it. And how do you avoid it? By being ethical. Okay, so that's one important aspect that you have to take care of as an interviewer. And also, you must specify it very clearly to the person who is giving the interview. When will you get back to them? You cannot always, make them waiting for the response from your end. Tell, we will get back to you by within the next 2 to 3 days. We will get back to you by the end of this week. Give them a specific time. Tell them when you will come back. And also, when you give them a date and time, you have to ensure that you maintain that particular date or time. You keep up your word, because that's when you establish your credibility. Not just your credibility, but also the credibility of your organization. Okay, and always keep it professional. There is a very thin line between small talk and having a small acquaintance, right? So ensure that the professionalism is maintained. Have that professional attitude at the end of it. No matter how much you like the candidate, how much you do not like the candidate, if they are fitting the bill, if they are fitting the position that has been, put up, then you have to respect them. That is you being professional. And that professional is one of the basic etiquettes of an interviewer. Okay. Last but not the least, thank the interviewees for the interest and the time that they have given, right? Because at the end of it, what happens, most organizations, even if they are not hiring you for now, even if, they select one or two candidates, but there were many deserving candidates, what they do, they maintain that pool of candidates. They keep their resumes there. As in when the, requirement arises, they might get back to you because they saw something nice in you, right? So it's important. It's also helps in terms of, like I said, establish the credibility of you as an HR, the credibility of your organization. It also is kind of, what do I say? Particular way in which you market for your organization. You establish that sentimental or emotionality towards the organization. Word of mouth, that the organization culture was so good. Like, for example, we have attended many interviews. Some interviews go so well, the kind of hospitality that they offer is so nice, wherein some other interviews you might not be that impressed. And when you feel good, when you leave the interview process with a nice feeling good factor, then the high chances are high that you will always speak well about it, right? That advocacy towards the company forms. So these are some of the basic interviewer etiquettes that is expected out of you. As we saw, there are many people from the HR background, from the MBA background. This is specifically for you. Why you must, conduct an interview well. What are the aspects that you have to take care of? Okay, with this, let me move ahead. These are some of the interviewing skills that are kind of, necessary for both the ends. The person who is interviewing, the person who's taking the interview, right? So what are the things? First is active listening. Active listening has to happen from both the ends. Now, what do I mean by active listening? You're not just listening for the sake of it. You're listening it attentively. You're giving importance to each and every information that the other person is giving. Right. So active listening has to be there from both the ends. The interviewer is the person who is taking the interview, and interviewee is the person who's giving the interview. Okay. So listening has to happen from both the ends. By listening, I just don't mean like, you're listening to what the other person is saying. You give thought towards it, you understand. That's your active listening. Okay. Secondly, observational skills. You must observe. As an interviewer, it's extremely important. Like I said, you must pay attention to the body language of the other person. What do they mean? Because like I said, in communication, more than 50% of the communication happens via non-verbals. So observe. How is their body language? How are they speaking? Do they appear a bit kind of, what I say, nervous, right? Or do they appear like, as if they are not interested? Observe. Okay, so that's one thing. And you have to be friendly, calm, and relaxed. Like I said, one of the first, in the previous slide, we saw one of the first aspects that you have to take care as an interviewer is to put the other person at ease. So in that aspect, you have to be friendly. You have to maintain a calm demeanor. You have to be relaxed. You cannot be in a hurry. Do not take interviews in a hurry because it's unfair for the candidates, right? So always be relaxed, always have a specific time, and take the interview in that particular period. Okay. Next, you have to be emotionally intelligent. Now, emotional intelligence is nothing but understanding, when a person gives you a response, understanding from what perspective are they speaking, right? So that's about being emotionally intelligent and also keeping your biases at bay. Like, for example, now there are a lot of, hue and cry happening with respect to reservation of jobs for certain people in the region, for certain regional people, right? But, when you see all those discussions happening, you also get to see the aspect wherein, many people are speaking about the silent preferences given to people from their own region, right? So that's about, being an emotionally intelligent person will keep their biases at control. You cannot be biased as an interviewer. That's completely unethical. That's not something that an interviewer should kind of, practice, right? An emotionally intelligent person will ensure that he or she is ethical. So preference for ethics comes when you're emotionally intelligent. Okay. And you have to be objective. Means what? You will keep all your point of view. See, like, for example, I might like something or I might prefer something, but I might be right or not be right. When I say objective, means you're not looking at it from your perspective. You're not looking at it from the person who is speaking his or her perspective, but you're looking at things from a third person's point of view. That's what we mean when we say being objective is nothing but looking at things from a third person's point of view. Now, why is it important? It helps you to make the right decisions. It helps you to understand things in the right perspective. So keep all your thoughts, keep all your preferences, keep all your, all the things that's in your head, not just in terms of your perceptions, your, attitudes towards certain things. Keep everything at bay. Look at it from a plain, mindset. Then you will be correct in terms of your decision. Okay. So that's why objectivity is very important. Next is conversational skills. See, people are different. Some are open to speak, some might not be. That doesn't mean they are kind of, they do not have the skill sets that's needed for the job. So how do you assess? You must, ensure that you have a good conversation with the other person. Help the other person to open up. If he or she seems a bit reserved, you have to help them to open up, to help them answer. That's when you can assess, right? So you must have good conversational skills. This is also with respect to people when it comes to the interviewees, people who are attending the interviews. See, you might have excellent technical skills. You might have good skill sets that's needed. You might be better than the other person, whoever has been hired or whoever is being preferred. But until and unless you showcase the skill sets that you have, you showcase the talent that you have, you showcase how you are better when compared to the other candidates, you will not be given preference. So it's up to you to showcase your talents. You have to showcase. You have to say that, see, I possess these talents. See, I'm good at this. If you do not showcase it, nobody will have that time or put in that effort to kind of, dig deep and understand you. So no matter how reserved you are, no matter how nervous you are, no matter how underconfident you are, you have to showcase your talent. You have to identify what you're good at, showcase it. You have to speak up your mind. Okay. Being nervous, being underconfident, many of you said one of the aspects that you're looking forward for is to increase your confidence, right? Nobody is going to come and tell you, like, please increase your confidence, or it's not something that you can go and buy somewhere. It happens. It's a process. You build it one step at a time, right? So you must ensure that if you're facing an interview today, ensure that these are the questions that I want to ask, and I will ask it, right? No matter, it's like, the response from the other end doesn't matter. For you, it's important for you to put forth your thoughts. So you have to be confident, build it one step at a time. Okay, so that's something that you have to take care of. Now, coming back to the interviewers as well as interviewees, it's important for you to have the job knowledge. What is the position? What are the skill sets the position demands? What are the personality traits the position demands? In terms of the team, how big is the team that you will be working for? Wherein, are you expected to work individually? Are you going to be a part of the team? If yes, how big is the team? What are the collaboration skills that's needed? Are you expected to have people skills? Have a detailed job knowledge. Okay, this is especially for the interviewers because you have to hire a candidate who fits all these aspects. Okay, in terms of people who attend the interviews, right? You must understand not just the technical knowledge, because tomorrow when you get hired, you'll be working with people. If you are a person who's an individual worker, for me, give a work, I'll sit individually and work, right? If you're such a person, then you must look for positions that helps you in terms of doing just that. But imagine the position demands you to have a lot of collaboration, speak to other teammates, speak to other people, get information from them. And if you're not comfortable with that, then obviously you're not going to fare well in that particular position, right? So it's important for you to understand what is the demand of this particular job. Next, talent recognition. As an interviewer, as in when you're speaking to the interviewee, the person who's giving the interview, you must be able to recognize their talent. What are they good at? Like, for example, some people might not have or possess that great technical skills, but they might be excellent in terms of their people skills. Now, what do I mean by people skills? The way they interact with people, the way they establish relationships, the way they get information. It's like a cakewalk for them. These are the people who possess good people skills. So if they're excellent in terms of people skills and you feel the technical skills can be developed, but people skills is something that will be helpful for this position, then you will obviously be giving preference to that particular candidate. Hence, recognition of talent becomes extremely important. Okay. And you must have a methodological approach. You cannot just, go interview some people and get done with it. There is a particular method that you have to adopt. How am I assessing the technical knowledge? How am I assessing the soft skills that's needed? How am I going to rate them? Right? So there has to be a particular methodological approach. Like, for example, it depends or varies from one organization to another. For some HRs, it's mainly like you just see the job, the team tells you this is the requirement of a position, you get all the basic information done, you post, you hire, and you send back. But in some organizations, hiring process is a very serious process. So they give a very detailed thought in terms of hiring the candidate. So each and every candidature is discussed. So there is a methodological approach that they follow. Like there is a basic interview that happens. Next, there is a technical round. Right. Next, there is a interview with the senior official of that particular team or the team leader, right? Senior manager. So there is a particular method that gets applied. There's a particular method in which you test all these skill sets. How are you going to check the skill sets that's needed, right? Whether if you're going to have a pen and pencil round means what? Do you give a questionnaire and you expect the candidates to answer? Will you have an interview round? Or in terms of technical things, will you give, like for example, in terms of data drops or in terms of coding, will you give them a specific code, ask them to work on it? What is the methodology that you're adopting? You have to be clear with that. When it comes to the people who are attending interviews, if you want to ask how exactly will the technical things be tested, you can always ask them. Okay, so that's one thing. And questioning and probing skills, this is with respect to the interviewer specifically. You must know what are the right questions to ask. Okay, when should you ask it? There is something called as the question funnel, right? Initially, you start your conversation with open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are nothing but wherein you give scope to the other person or the interviewee to explain themselves or to answer in any length that they want. On the other hand, when we say closed questions, it's just a yes or no. So open-ended questions, it's just the opposite of it. And probing questions is when you kind of, the interviewee says something and you pick on it and you ask questions regarding that. Like, for example, when you say, when you ask an interviewee, like, please give me information about your academic record. They might say, and you might see a gap there. Then you can pick on it and ask, why exactly is there a gap? What did you do? right? And this is one tip to all the people who are facing interviews. When you have a particular gap and you get questioned around it, rather than saying, obviously you can say, you have to be honest about it and say why exactly do you have a gap. But rather than that, if you can tell them in terms of what are the certifications or what are the skill sets that you kind of achieved in that particular gap year, then that will help you in terms of covering up that gap. Okay, you did not just waste it. You have done something there. You have achieved some new skill set there. It need not be connected to the job, but it can be something new that you have learned, right? So that will kind of give a good image about yourself and kind of hush up all the the reasons why exactly there is a gap. So that's something that you have to take care of. And ability to evaluate candidate is specifically with respect to interviewers again. How is this candidate better when compared to others? Or how is this candidate more ideal to be or more suitable to the position? You must have that ability to assess and make a decision. So that's the last one. Decision making. You must be able to take decisions, right? So, and decision making is a skill that will not just come to you at one go. It's something that you learn. Everything, be it in terms of your confidence, be it in terms of your ability to make decisions, be it in terms of your ability to assess candidates, analyze each and every aspect about them. It's something that you build in a step-by-step manner. So towards that, many of you here are from, are still in your pursuing your studies. So it's something that has to be built one step at a time. And the main or the important task is to take that first step. So I urge or I request all of you, whenever you have an opportunity, take that first step. It's not going to go in vain. Take that first step. You will eventually build on it. Okay. So these are some of the skill sets that you need when you are interviewing a candidate with respect to the interviewers. And also here are some of the things like active listening, being calm, being relaxed, being emotionally intelligent, speaking objectively when asked your views, right? Striking that conversation, knowing every aspect about the position that's open, right? These are some of the things. And decision making is important even for people who are attending interviews or interviewees, because when they ask you a question, you have to decide on spot and give your view. So you must, kind of get all these things, in head. Like, you have to decide there. You cannot take too much of time to decide, or you cannot appear indecisive. That gives a bad impression. So you must ensure that you have taken a decision. Okay. So these are some of the aspects that are important from an interviewee's perspective as well. Okay. Now, in case you have any doubts so far, you're free to, post your questions in the chat section. Any doubts so far? If not, we will continue and interviews, because this is a crowd that's mix of both. So in case you have any specific questions towards anything, please feel free to post it in the chat section. Okay, there is one particular question here. Yashwant asks, can you give few tips how to build resume and LinkedIn profile? Yes. Okay. Yashwant, I'll come to the resume because we will be looking at the resume-based questions in a little while. But to give a few tips in terms of LinkedIn profile, like I said, what are your skill sets? Please, complete your LinkedIn profile. That's one of the most important things. Do not leave any details unanswered. Like, for example, which, if you're a student, I believe you're a student so far, right? So what are you pursuing currently? And what are your areas of interest? Like, for example, you might be an engineering student, but also you might be interested in coding. So what is it with respect to coding that you're doing? Is there any specific certifications that you have got, right? In terms of soft skills, is there any, short-term courses that you have taken up? Keep posted. That's one thing. And also follow or kind of share industry experts' thoughts that showcases that, yes, you take a little bit of effort in terms of understanding what the industry is, in terms of understanding what are the new trends, that showcases your knowledge, your interest in the subject. Okay, so that's one thing. And also, whenever you have worked in an internship or you have worked on a particular project, ask, request people to give their recommendations for you or give their opinions about you. Okay, when that's there, it kind of helps and other people to understand, okay, how is this person, right? Obviously, they'll share some nice thoughts about you and gives a good impression. See, LinkedIn is very important because, like I said, first impressions is very important. And even before you appear before the interviewer, your resume goes there, your LinkedIn profile speaks to them, right? So LinkedIn is also is also one of the ways in which you ensure you have established a good first impression. So please complete your LinkedIn profiles first, update all the certifications and all the courses that you have taken, and also ask for recommendations from your seniors, interns, or organizations that you have worked for. Okay, that's one way in which you're going to keep your LinkedIn profile updated. Now, resume, I will speak about it because we'll be speaking about it in detail. Okay, let me move ahead now. If there are no more questions, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to post it. Okay, now let's come to the interview process. Okay, how exactly does the interview process go ahead? Earlier, we spoke about some of the pre-processes and the post-processes with respect to the interview. Now we are speaking specifically with respect to the interview process. First, you have to establish a good rapport. Like I said, a small conversation, a small talk, what we say is important, is very much necessary in terms of establishing that rapport. Where are you from? Where are you hailing from? Okay, what are your interests? Or, you can ask, how is the weather? There was too much of traffic. How did you come? Right? Small talks that helps you in terms of, establishing that rapport. Okay, Jane, there is a question. Is behavior question important in interview section? How to manage that? Yes, behavioral based questions are very important. I'll come to that. Okay. When we discuss about types of questions, there are resume based questions, what Yashwant asked for, and there is also behavior based questions. So we'll be discussing about it in detail. Do not worry. Okay, so let me proceed with this. First is to establish a good rapport. This is especially for the interviewers. Okay, in terms of people who are attending interviews or interviewees, how do you establish that good rapport? Have a genuine smile, establish that eye contact, have a good or maintain a good eye contact. Very important. When you maintain a good eye contact, it says that you are a confident individual, and confidence is one of the key things that everybody looks forward for. You have to be confident as an individual first, right? So that's what they look forward for. So you establish your rapport by maintaining a good eye contact and by having that genuine smile. Also, handshake is one of the very important aspects. Okay, we think handshake is just like, you extend your hand, you shake it for a little while, and then you're done. No, there is something called handshake etiquette. That's also very important. That showcases how confident individual you are. When you are meeting another person, extending your hand, when you shake your hand, the web between the thumb and your forefinger must meet. Okay, and your handshake has to be firm. It must last for 2 to 3 seconds. And when you're shaking their hand, you must look into the eyes of the other person, have a genuine smile. These are some of the ways in which you establish a good rapport. Second, with respect to the interviewer, the person who is taking the interview, you must, ask or get the specific basic information that is needed. Read the resume, check the academic record, check for the previous, experiences where they have worked for which organizations. Ask open-ended questions based on that if you feel it's a need, or leave an open-ended question to them. Can you kindly tell me about your academics and the your experience with respect to in the industry? Which organizations have you worked for? What was your previous position that you have worked in? Right? Ask information, gather. Okay. Next, give information. See, when you're taking an interview, it's not just you're gathering information about the other person. It's also about you giving information about the position that's open, giving information about the organization that you're working for. Because ultimately, you're choosing a candidate who fits the organization, who fits the team, right? So you have to give that information. So interview is mostly, thought of as a one-way process, wherein an interviewer asks questions, interviewee answers. But no, it's also a two-way communication to an extent. How? Like when you give information about the organization or the team. Okay. Next, ask close the interview, right? Now, how do you close the interview? Thank the candidate for attending the interview, thank them for their time, right? Tell them when you will get back to them, and be very clear. When you give a date and a time, you have to, abide by it, because that's when your credibility gets established as an HR and also as an organization. Okay. And obviously, you'd have taken a lot of notes how this candidate is, how did they answer, what is their confidence level, whether their academics, meet the requirement, whether the technical skills or personality traits meet the requirement of the job position. You would have taken a lot of notes, right? So ensure, you go through those notes, compare that of each and every candidate, and choose the best candidate that you want to hire. It's like, at times it so happens that you have to take the ultimate decision and choose the candidate, and many a times it so happens, amongst the huge pool of candidates you interview, shortlist some and give it to the team that wants to hire, and they will take the final decision. Both of it, you must be able to assess who is better and who is not. For that, you have to take good notes. That's also one of the aspects that you have to take care of. Take very good notes. What is needed? Ensure there is every other information that's needed. Okay, we will speak about it in terms of the information that you have to take, in terms of the interview documentation. Okay, let me move ahead now. Okay, so one thing that most of you were asking for, types of questions and also examples in terms of the questions that you can ask and the questions that you will face as an interviewee. This is relevant to both of you, both the pools of people who are present here. Okay, so what are the types of questions? First is resume-based questions. That is questions picked from the resumes. Second, direct questions, questions which are not, shot at you from, beating around the bush, but those are direct, and you are expected to give direct answers to that. Thirdly, open-ended questions. Fourthly, questions to assess behavior. Jade, something that you asked, behavior-based questions. Okay. Fifth one is the questions to assess soft skills. This is also very important. It's not just the technical skills. And like, it's not just about, IQ now. It's also about EQ and AQ. Now, what do I mean by EQ? EQ is your emotional quotient. Now, what do I mean by AQ? AQ is your adaptability quotient. And adaptability is one of the soft skills that the organizations are looking for. Why? Because companies are changing rapidly. Right? The organizations, industries, they are going rapid changes. Every day there is one or the other change. And how good are you at adapting to these changes? That needs to be assessed. And that's one of the soft skills that I look forward for. Okay, so questions to assess soft skills. And last but not the least, out of the box questions. Okay, this is very interesting, out of the box questions. I'm sure you would have faced one or two such questions in our interviews. Why exactly do those questions get asked, and how should you answer it? We will discuss about it in detail. Okay. Now, firstly, let's deal with resume-based questions. Okay. Now, when we say resume-based questions, these are questions that are picked from the information that you have given in the resume. Okay, so this is very easy for the interviewers. You look at the resume and you have any questions, you ask about it. So what exactly are the things that you ask about? Like, for example, you will be identifying the candidate's knowledge in terms of the industry, in terms of the job position, the traits that are needed for the job. You will, kind of understand the skill set in terms of the certificates that's given, in terms of the attitudes that the people carry. Like, for example, they would have mentioned, in the very basic thing that that's the summary that you mention at the very beginning of your resume, right? So that gives you an overall. See, the career summary or the professional summary that you mention at the beginning of the resume is something like the summary of your entire resume, whatever the skill sets you have mentioned, whatever is there in the entire thing. Like if you see in a newspaper, there is a headline, there is a small one or two liner, and then there is an entire body. So the summary is nothing but the one or two liner, which gives you a glimpse of what exactly the news is all about, or what exactly is the information in the body. In the same way, you get to identify a lot of things in that summary. Okay, you get to, from a resume, an interviewer gets to assess the knowledge of the candidate, the skill sets that he or she possesses, the attitude that they carry. Okay. And you will also understand in terms of the cultural fitment of the organization. Like, for example, they would have mentioned something like, previously, I have the experience of handling a team of how many ever members, maybe like 5, 6, or you say 30 in terms of positions that are higher, right? So that's about the cultural fitment, right? And if you have the experience of working globally with global teams, right? If you have the experience of working with international teams, that speaks about the cultural specificity or the cultural fitment of the candidate to that particular position. Like the, or if you can see here, the organization size, the age, the culture, all these things speaks about the candidate's fitment for the company's work environment. Okay. And also other things like whether if you are a team player, whether if you're ready to relocate for the particular position to the office, right? And another aspect that they look forward for now is like whether if you are comfortable working from the office, right? Because most of them are preferring to work from home, right? So whether if you're comfortable, if it is something like, wherein you're required to come to the organization maybe 2 or 3 days a week, are you comfortable coming? So that's something that they'll be looking forward for. That's about checking how accommodating are you, right? And also, are you an individual contributor or are you a team player? What is your preference? How do you prefer to work? All this information can be scrutinized from the resume. Okay. How exactly to pick the questions, what questions to ask, that I'll deal in the next slide. But before I move on to the next slide, to the people who are attending the interviews, one thing is be thorough with your resume. Whatever you have mentioned in your resume, you must be thorough with whatever the questions that can come. Expect questions. If you have mentioned, you have worked on this particular project, right? You must be thorough. What is the project all about? What was your role in the project? Was there any difficulties while working on that particular project? How did you overcome it? You must be thorough with it. A while ago, I was organizing a HR conclave, okay, in which most of the HR said what is one thing that they look forward for, or one suggestion for the candidates. One thing that they said is, they look for people mention a lot of things in their resume. And when you ask a question with respect to that, they have no answers. This is especially with respect to the freshers. I'm saying this because most of you here are, still pursuing your studies. So, what happens usually, it's like rather than you creating your own resume, you get a format and you just fill in information. That's what happens when, campus hiring happens. Most of the colleges gives you a particular format, you fill in information, you attend the interview. That's not the case. Check each and every, be thorough with each and every information. If you're unsure about something, please do not mention it in the resume. When you have mentioned something in the resume, be it a project, be it an internship, be it a certification, you must have all the information with respect to that. Okay, so this is my 1 cent towards, the people attending interviews. How should you kind of, be thorough with your resumes? Now let's move ahead to the next question. Creating questions based on resumes. What kind of questions can you ask, or what kind of questions gets asked or gets picked from your resume? With respect to the career objective, like I said, the summary. Career objective is nothing but the summary. What is your objective? Why are you applying for this position? Right? What can they ask? You would have mentioned a lot of qualities there. Usually, career objective or a resume, we write it from the third person, right? First person is I, me, second person is he, she, third person is, second person is him, or things like that. And third person is she, he. So when you're writing a resume, it must always be in third person. She or he is a good person, right? So you will be writing like, he or she is good in terms of these qualities, have worked there, have worked that, right? So in terms of career objective, what are the questions that gets asked? How did you identify this particular quality, right? So that's one thing. And why do you want this particular position? Why do you want this particular position? Why do you want this particular job? That's one of the basic questions that gets asked, right? And in terms of assessing the work experience, what you have mentioned in your resume, what kind of questions gets asked? What were the challenges that you faced in your previous position, right? And what are your expectations in terms of your current job, right? So that's one of the things that you have to, that they can ask you. What is your expectation with respect to this current job? Okay. In terms of the skills, what kind of questions can get asked in terms of technical skills? Where was this particular technical skill used? Right? How much will it be useful? Like, for this current position. Those are some of the things that they can ask. In terms of non-technical skills, they can ask, how is it useful, or why and where did you learn? How do you think it will help you in terms of, moving ahead in terms of your current position or the position that you have applied for? And in terms of attitude, to assess attitude, what kind of questions can be asked? It can be something like they can give you a particular situation, right? Tell me about a particular situation when you felt, like, for example, tell me about a particular situation when you felt you are not being heard, or your talents or your opinions are not being taken. How did you handle it? How did you overcome it? Right? This showcases your attitude. And also another general question that gets asked with respect to attitude is, what's important for you? Experience, your remuneration, or your or your pay package, or opportunity to grow. What is more important to you? This is one of the basic questions that they ask, right? What is important? Your paycheck, opportunity for growth, or to kind of increase your skill set? What is more important? This showcases what is your attitude. Some, here, for the people who are attending interviewees, sorry, who are attending interviews, you can be very honest about it and say pay is important, as well as opportunity to grow is very important, right? You have to be honest here. That's one of the key factors. You have to be honest no matter what you're speaking about. See, as an interviewer or in an interview, nobody will expect you to know everything, or kind of be perfect with each and everything. What they look forward for is how honest are you in terms of your responses, how open are you as an individual, and how good are you at managing expectations. Have you been resilient? Have you put effort towards it and corrected it? Right? These are the attitudes that they want to see. Nobody wants a perfect candidate. Okay. They want a candidate who is good in these terms. Okay. So in that aspect, attitude plays a very important role. Okay. In terms of assessing work culture. Okay. One second. I have a Okay, what all factors are to be considered in resume if changing a domain from non-IT to IT? Okay, if you're moving from non-IT to IT, probably what are the experiences or the skill sets that you have with respect to IT? Like, for example, in terms of IT, you will need to have proficiency with respect to certain softwares, or with respect to certain aspects like coding, or in terms of data, right? What are the certifications that you have done? Okay, and also you must clearly establish what is your experience, because it's a switch of the domain. You have to clearly explain what exactly are, why are you interested in that. See, it's not just enough mentioning what are the things that you're proficient with. Okay, like you're proficient with this particular software, you're proficient with this particular programming, right? You have to also mention, probably, if you have taken part in some what do I say? Sandeep, I hope it's like, okay, you have worked earlier in non-IT and now shifting to IT. So why the interest? You have to clearly establish that. Okay. And why should they give you a consideration rather than the one who is from IT background itself? So you must clearly establish how you have acquired that technical skills, the certifications. It has to be credible. One, certifications from any organization will not work many a times. If you're applying for positions in big organizations, you need to have certifications from credible, institutions. That's one thing. And you have taken part in certain programs like, hackathons and all these things that you have to mention. Okay. Mention it clearly in the resume. Okay. And when you attend an interview, you have to put in a little bit of more effort when compared to others, because here it's a shift. Okay. And obviously, when there is a shift, the interviewers will kind of, they will not be so sure. They will take a chance on you. And when they give a chance to you, you have to make sure that you have made that clear impression on them. You have to be passionate about it. You have to be very clear and say why exactly you changed the path. Okay. These are aspects. It's about how clearly you kind of express your interest in this particular aspect. That's one thing that they will look forward for. How passionate are you about it? Why is that passion there? And you must also be very clear in terms of the path ahead. Right? This is one of the basic questions that gets asked. Where do you see yourself 5 years down the lane? right? You must be very clear, where are you starting from? What are the positions that you want to achieve later? And why the shift? You must have a clear, solid answer about it. Okay. So that's one of the aspects in which you can kind of, say, why the shift from non-IT to IT, or establish your credibility with respect to that. Okay. Sandeep, I hope I have answered your question. Okay. Moving ahead, in terms of the work culture, okay, what are the questions that gets asked when somebody wants to assess the cultural fitment? Okay, how did she or he do a particular job? Okay, thank you, Sandeep. So how did you do this particular job, or how was it? How was your previous experience in the previous position? Did you enjoy it? Were there some things that you felt can see? This is a very tricky question. Okay, this is mainly with respect to the people who are attending interviews. They can ask you, was there anything in your previous organization or your position that you think you could have done better in, or the organization could have done better in? See, you can be as honest as you want here, but again, you must maintain that balance. It's very important, because you cannot badmouth about your previous organization. Many a times, people being extremely honest, they just speak about it. But you must have that balance there. That's very important, because when you speak bad about your previous organization, it gives an impression that this person can speak bad about our organization also later, right? You can nitpick on our organization also once you are hired, right? So you have to maintain that balance. Be extremely careful when answering such questions. Maintain that, fair balance there. That's very important. And when you're speaking about what kind of questions gets asked when they want to assess whether you are an individual contributor or a team person, or a person who prefers to work in team. They can ask you something like, what were the roles in your previous projects? What kind of role did you play in the previous project? Right. So what are the first thing they will ask you? It's for the interviewers as well. First, you can ask, what kind of projects have you worked on? Tell me a bit about the project that you have worked on earlier. Then you can ask more questions, asking that, what exactly was your role in this particular project? That's another question. Also, they can ask you other questions like, was there any sort of difficulty that you faced in the previous project? If yes, how did you handle it? That's another question that can get asked. They can also ask you like, was there any situation wherein you had to convince your teammates about a particular thing in the previous project? If yes, how did you convince them? How did you go about it? These are some of the questions that gets asked when they want to assess whether you are an individual contributor or a team player. Okay, so these are some of the questions that gets asked, that gets picked from the resume. Okay, activity part, I'll come at the end when we have some time, but let me finish the questions first. Okay, so next is the direct questions. Like, these are the questions which are very direct by nature. Okay, and you have to be a bit careful when you're asking questions. Okay, answering such questions. Now, with respect to the people who are taking interviews, what are the direct questions that you can ask? Why is there a gap in your career? Okay, why did you leave your previous job? What was the reasons you left your previous job? Right? Why are you shifting to Bangalore? If you're relocating, if the candidate is relocating, why are you shifting? Right? What are the other questions that you can ask as a direct question? Can I have some answers in the chat section? By the time I kind of help people who are attending interviews on how to answer such direct questions, people who will be taking interviews in the future, give me a few questions, the direct questions that you can ask. Okay, please type it in the chat section. I will read them out. Okay, now people who are attending interviews, when such direct questions are being asked to you, the key factor here is you have to be honest about whatever it is. See, ultimately, people are not hiring machines here. You are a human being, right? They're hiring human beings. So human beings come with all sort of aspects. Your pains, there are losses, maybe there are personal reasons, right? Be honest about it, okay? And if it's way too personal, after you have expressed, tell them this is something, a confidential issue. But since, see, like for example, let me tell you, if they ask me, why have you left the previous job? Okay, so if I am the person who is attending the interview and this question gets asked to me, how would I be answering it, right? So, it's like, I enjoyed my job thoroughly, and the opportunities were great, the pay was good, everything was fine, but somewhere it's like there was a bit of politics that I faced, which I became uncomfortable with, and hence I had to take the decision of moving on to another job. That's the reason I'm being given here. So I'm being honest here. Okay, I'm saying there was a bit of politics. I'm not going to the nitty-gritty or details of it. If I go to the details of it, then I'm bad mouthing. That shows bad on me. So you have to have that balance, as well as you have to be direct. When they ask you why you're shifting, or relocating, you can always say there are personal reasons. Since there was whatever the reasons in the family, or I had to relocate because whatever the reasons, tell. And if it's confidential, tell them this is a confidential one. But since you asked, I have spoken about it, or I have told you, right? So be honest about things and answer to the point. Do not beat around the bush. Do not try to cover up anything. Tell it directly, end it there. You do not want to go to the nitty-gritties. You do not want to go to things in detail. Be specific. Just tell. This is the main reason. But however, I wouldn't want to speak about it in detail. Be very clear about it. Okay. And another thing that you have to take care of is kind of, your answers should not lead to further questions. Okay. That you have to take care of. Yes, Sandeep, very good question there. There is a direct question that they can ask you. Why do you want to join our company? Right? Why do you want this particular position? Very nice. Right? Others, if you can think of any other direct questions that gets asked to you. Why do you want this position? Right? Why do you want to join our company? Why do you think our company is better when compared to? Do you think our organization is better when compared to others in the industry? If yes, how? Why? Right? They can ask they can ask you a question conversely also, something which is opposite to that also. Is there anything that you're not that happy about in the organization? Tricky question, but the key is to maintain a balance there. Why do we need to select you? Yes, Jane, right. Absolutely. Why do we need to select you? What if you did not get selected? Yes, these are some of the direct questions they ask you, isn't it? What if you do not get selected? Will you be okay with it, right? Or, what will be your next move? So it's like, you cannot say, I will try again. People, in order to impress, the general human tendency, you might say that I will try again, I will give my attempt again, and all those things. But somewhere it's like, be honest. If it's not working, that's okay. I'll attempt in another organization. It shows how resilient you are, right? It shows your attitude of not giving up, right? So that's one thing very nice. And Yashwant has another question here. Our company was startup, but you are showing interest to join in your company. Yes, ours is a startup company, but still you have applied. Why? Right? Can we say I get search another company? I will search. Yes, absolutely, Sandeep. You can say that. It's not like, you will always sit and wait for the company to hire you, right? If it's not working here, you will look for other opportunities and you will move on, right? That's something that they will look forward for. That's how you're supposed to answer. You have to say, you have to be honest about it. Okay. Do not hesitate in saying that. You can always say it. Okay. Let's move ahead to the next one. Open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions means wherein it's like the responses are not just a yes or no, but you have scope to explain in detail, give a lot of details. Okay. So these are called open-ended questions. Now, what are such questions? Tell me more about your current role, right? How was the work pressure in your previous organization? How did you deal with it, right? How did you manage travel, right? Will there be a lot of traveling involved? How are you going to manage, right? So these are some of the open-ended questions that gets asked. Okay. So that's one thing. For this, these are the questions for the people who will be interviewing, people who are attending interviews. When you get asked open-ended questions, how should you answer it, right? Give the user, you must be honest about it. Like I said, be genuine, be honest, be to the point, answer to the point. Do not beat around the bush. Nobody has the time to sit and listen. And many a times, when it's like I conduct the mock interviews or I conduct interviews, many people, they beat around the bush. They would speak a lot. When I ask a question, the answer will be like, you will speak directly for a good 4 to 5 minutes for one question. And no interviewer can afford so much time. They will try to give a lot of examples. They will try to give a lot of examples. They will try to give a lot of examples. They will try to give a lot of examples. speak, you must understand these things. You can read it from the other person's, face, right? You can read it from the other person's behavior. So you must be a better judge in terms of understanding whether you can speak now, how much you can speak, right? This is where your emotional intelligence comes into picture. Okay, so these are the open-ended questions that I was speaking about. Okay, let's move ahead. Behavior-based questions, something that Jane was asking for, right? So what exactly are behavior-based questions? Questions which assess your behavior, questions which assess the behavior to check whether if you possess the quality that the job demands or the organization demands. How will you behave when you are put in certain situations? That's what these questions are all about. Okay, how are these questions? Look at the two questions there. One, let me read it out. Please tell me about an occasion when you had to analyze a large amount of complex information which led to you identifying an improvement in service, delivery, or cost, right? They put you in a specific situation and ask you, how would you react? How would you act? That's your behavior-based questions. Now, another example. How do you ensure that team understands the team goals in a changing environment and work together to achieve the target, right? What are the other questions that you can think of? Like I said, one of the questions earlier, right? So in your previous organization, were there some situations wherein you had to kind of, convince someone, wherein you had to what do I say wherein you had to kind of adjust or kind of give preference to the other person, even though you did not agree with the other person's point of view, you still had to kind of give way for them, where there's such situations, right? Another thing is these can be in terms of experience based, or situations that can arise in the job later. Okay, if you are hired for this particular job, these can be the challenges that you'll be facing later. So they will ask you, if given this particular challenge, how will you face it? Or these can be hypothetical situations also. Now, when I say hypothetical situations, these are imaginary situations just created to assess how you're going to react. Okay, so if you are being asked, this is specifically for the people who will be attending interview, as you are asked, behavior-based questions, how are you expected to answer? Mostly these behavior-based questions gets asked at higher levels, okay? Not at the fresher level, but higher levels, okay? How are you supposed to answer? There is something called as the STAR system or the STAR method of answering these questions. Now, what do I mean by this? STAR, if you can see there, it's the first is S stands for situation, T stands for task, A stands for action, and R stands for result. First, explain the situation in detail. Okay. Tell about the tasks that were involved in the situation. You'd be required to do some tasks, right? Whether if you're capable of it or not, secondary, but there will be certain tasks. That's your challenges. And what action did you take with respect to that? And what was the result that it yielded? This is the methodological approach of answering behavior-based questions. Okay, like for example, imagine a situation wherein your manager is on leave and a client has come back to you asking for a specific solution or a resolution of an issue. Okay, you cannot wait for your manager to come back and resolve the issue. This is an immediate requirement. So how will you react at this particular situation? So first, you explain the situation. There is no one around from whom you can take the recommendation or kind of take suggestion from. That's your situation, right? Task at hand, you have to take the decision now, no matter what. So what did you do about it? That's your action. And what was the result that it yielded, right? So these are the aspects, how you answer behavior-based questions, okay? Second, don't accept situational responses. This is for interviewers. When you ask behavior-based questions, let them give you clear picture of how they will react. Do not, let them answer in hypothetical situations. Like, if this happened, then I would react like this. So if this is going to happen, then this is exactly how I'm going to act. They have to be specific. They cannot say, if in case this happens, then I'm going to act like this. If not like that, right? They cannot be kind of, unsure about things. They have to be specific and say, this is how I'm going to react in a situation given like this. Okay. They have to be sure about it. And, when you're asking behavior-based questions, give them time, take time. This is even for the people who are attending interviews. When the question is a bit tough, take time to think and then answer. And people who are taking interviews, do not be in a hurry. Do not hurry people to answer, immediately the moment you have asked a question. If they are thinking, give them time. Take your own time, think about it, tell them, just give me a moment, let me think and come back to you, right? Take a moment, think about it, structure your answer in your mind. How do you want to answer? What do you want to give references of, like, based on your experience, or based on your what the things you have heard or listened to, right? Whatever you want to speak about, structure the answer in your mind and then come back. Take your time. It's absolutely okay. Many people, in a hurry to answer, you answer wrong, and that's not going to take you anywhere. So better take the time and answer right. Okay, take the time. And people who are taking interviews, give time. If they're taking time, let them take their time. Be patient. Okay. Next, in follow-up, this is specifically for interviewers, people who are taking interviews, right? In case they have answered and there is something that you want to question about, some point, something that, some aspect that the person who's giving that interview, that is the interviewee mentioned, you think that interested you, you want to ask questions on that, ensure you follow up. That's when you take your notes. This is the question I want to ask. Many a times it so happens when you do not take a note of it, you forget, right? And that might be a crucial information that will give you insight about the person's personality, their mental process, how they think, how they act, their attitude, right? So always have a notes, make a note of things that you want to ask, make note of things that you found interesting. Okay, so these are some of the behavior based questions that gets asked. Okay, Jane and others, any specific question with respect to this, you're most welcome. Okay, before we move ahead to the soft skills questions, which is one of the important aspects, in case you have any questions, you're free to post it in the chat section. Okay, let me move ahead by then. In case you have, kindly post, I'll get back to it. Okay, questions to screen soft skills. Soft skills is one of the important aspects that they look forward for. No more do they hire people who are excellent at technical skills, but zero in soft skills. Soft skills is a very integral part of today's job market, because people no more work in isolation. You are part of a team. You are part of an organization. You are part of a regional team, as well as you are part of a global team, because most companies now are multinational. You're working with many people. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of talks. There's a lot of discussions that happens. So soft skills is extremely important. You must be confident. You must have good communication skills. Only then you get hired. If you see the current job market, why are so many people not getting jobs? Why are they struggling to get jobs? They possess all the required technical skills, but still they end up not getting jobs. Why? One of the main reasons is soft skills. Soft skills is very important, and you must give a lot of importance to it, as much as you give to in terms of achieving your technical skills. Okay, now these are some of the top 6 soft skills that the organizations are looking forward for. Okay, first is adaptability. Okay, second is cultural fit, third is collaboration, fourth is leadership, fifth is growth potential, and sixth is prioritization. Now we will look at each one of these aspects. Okay, in case you have any doubts so far, kindly post it. Okay, I have received one message here. To get a job, is it important to have skills for freshers or experience? No, obviously you need to have skill sets. See, as fresher, we cannot expect you to have experience, because somebody has to give you a job and then you will have the job experience. But it's very easy for you to have the skill sets. You need to have the required skill sets. Now, as a fresher, what are the skill sets that the company or people will be looking out for? One thing is, you have to be enthusiastic, you have to be confident, you have to, apart from possessing all the technical skill sets that the job requires, right? You must be confident, you must have good communication skills, you must be a team player, right? And you must have good collaboration skills, right? You must have that urge to grow, what we call as the growth potential, right? So all these things. See, experience you cannot have as a fresher, but skill sets. So in that case, you have to give importance to the skill sets that are needed. What are the soft skills that are needed apart from the technical skills? See, technical skills are first. You possess very good soft skills, but there is no technical skills, you will not get the job, right? You will end up not getting the job. Again, you have very good technical skills, but your soft skills are poor, then slight chances of getting a job, not completely but slight chances, but still, since you have technical knowledge, you might end up getting a job, right? So soft skills are important. First is your technical skills. Get all the technical skills, whatever is needed for the job that you're aiming for. What are the technical skills that they will look forward for, right? What software, what coding, whatever, what programs, right? Make a note of that. Achieve all those technical skills. Apart from that, also keep working on the soft skills that are needed. And how do you showcase it? That's very important. Many a times it so happens that you have all the skill sets needed, but at that particular moment in the interview, you end up not showcasing it. Maybe because you are nervous, maybe because you are, you are not at ease at that particular time. That shouldn't happen. When you have the skills, you must be able to showcase it. Okay, so that's one thing that you have to take care of. Noor, hope I have answered your question. Okay, moving ahead, screening adaptability. Okay, adaptability is how well can you adjust with things. Like I said earlier, organizations are changing, right? The dynamics of job market is changing every day. So given the case, you must be quick to adapt. What do I mean by adapt? Adjust. New environment, new manager, new job requirement. How good are you at, kind of filling that up? How good are you at adapting or kind of adjusting yourself so that you can move ahead in terms of the environment, right? Like for example, take the example of frogs. For example, they're very good at adapting. Either you put them in the pond or you put them on the land, they adapt themselves. That's exactly what we mean by adaptability. How good are you? Whenever, be it the situations are different, but still you must be capable of giving your full, working for your full potential. That's what is adaptability. Now for interviewers, what kind of questions? Interviewers as well as interviewees. Interviewers, these are the questions that you can ask in terms of to check adaptability of a person, how good he or she is at adapting themselves. And people who are facing interviews, these are the questions that gets asked in terms of how, checking your adaptability. How good are you at adapting yourself? Let's go through the questions. The first one, tell me about a time when you were asked to do something you had never done before, right? You're given a task which you had never done before. How will you quickly adapt? How will you start doing it, right? Second, describe a situation in which you embraced a new system, process, technology, or idea at work that was a major departure from the old way of doing things. Okay, you're working on something, all of a sudden there is a change in terms of the program, in terms of the manager, in terms of the management, and the way you used to perform that particular task or process has changed. How well will you change yourself to kind of, start working in the new method? Okay. Tell me about the biggest change that you have had to deal with. How did you adapt the change? What is the biggest change that you had to face in your career or in your life so far? See, many of you are freshers, right? Like how Noor asked just now. So in that case, you will not have experience with respect to jobs to speak about change, right? What was the biggest change that you faced? Well, like for example, they can also ask you, what is the biggest challenge that you faced in your life? Gets asked, right? So in that cases, you do not have the prior job experience. So how do you answer it? Refer it to your life experiences. You do not have experience with respect to job, that's absolutely okay. Refer it to your life experiences. Okay, reflect back on your life. Speak about the challenges that you have faced. Speak about the things that you had to change in yourself in order to, grow ahead, right? So reflect back on your life experiences. That's one thing that I would like to suggest for all the people who are attending interviews to answer such questions. Okay. And how did you react to a particular situation? What did you learn from it? Recall a time when you were assigned a task outside of your job description. How did you handle the situation? What was the outcome? Imagine you are working on a particular project and certain tasks are not part of your job description, but somehow, all of a sudden you are required to work on it. What will you do? Will you work on it? If yes, how will you kind of, gain the necessary, what do I say, technical aspects or necessary knowledge to do the job efficiently? That's one of the questions that can get asked, right? That's about how well you are good at adapting yourself. Tell me about a time when you had to adjust to a colleague's working style in order to complete a project or achieve your objective. See, you're working with different people. Just like how you're living with a lot of people, you're also working with people with different mindsets. So, one particular person's working style might be different from that of you, right? So, how well do you collaborate with them? How do you adjust and work? Right? So these are some of the questions that can get asked in terms of checking your adaptability. Okay. If you have experience, if you can reflect back on your professional career, you can think of situations. So you must be quick here. When they ask you questions, you must be quick to reflect back and come back or retrieve the information that is needed to answer this question. In terms of freshers, you do not have work experience, reflect back on your life. You can say, since I'm a fresher, I do not have the prior work experience. However, if I have to reflect back on my life, so this is one of the biggest changes that I faced in my life, or the biggest challenges I faced in my life, and how I adapted to it. Reflect back on your life and get back an answer. Okay, so this is about adaptability, one of the most important skills that the organizations look for. Second, cultural fit. Each organization comes with their own culture, what we call as the organization culture. Some organizations give importance to employees, some give importance to profit, right? For some, it's okay to work after the working hours. For some, it's important to work within the working hours. 9 to 6, 9 to 6. Some organizations, 9 to 6 is 9 to 8 or 9 to 9, right? So this is a factor of culture, what the organization prefers or follows. Okay, so what kind of questions get asked when they have to check if you fit that particular organization culture? What are the three things that are most important to you in a job, right? Maybe it is the perks that you get, maybe it is the salary, maybe it is the growth opportunity, maybe it is the opportunity to learn. Okay, be honest, say obviously salary is important, the perks it comes along with is important, but also I want to grow, right? So the growth potential is something that kind of inspires me or is important in a job. Be very specific, be ideal, also be honest, as like I said, maintain a balance. Be honest as well as give that ideal answer. Okay. Second, what would make you choose our company over others? Direct questions. I think Sandeep asked this question earlier, right? This can be a direct question as well as a question that will check your cultural fitment, right? Why will you choose a company over others, right? Tell me about a time in the last week when you have been satisfied, energized, and productive at work. What were you doing? Well, tell me about the aspects that makes you the most happiest in your job, right? What are the aspects that gives you that happiness in your job, right? These are the questions that ask you in terms of the culture. Okay, what's the biggest misconception your coworkers have about you, and why do they think that, right? How does your coworkers perceive you? Why are you giving that perception to them? In case you want to change, how will you change? It speaks about your personality, right? Your personality and how your personality suits the team that you will be working with. Okay. What's the most interesting thing about you that's not on your resume? Very interesting question. This gets asked most of the times, especially in terms of, higher roles. What's one thing that you wanted to mention in this resume but you couldn't? Yeah, right. So this is one of the tricky questions, but very nice question. You can always be creative and innovative in terms of answering it. Okay. So these are some of the questions that gets asked to screen your cultural fitment to the organization. Now, another very important aspect to screen collaboration. Now, what do we mean by collaboration? You're working, as we discussed earlier, you're working with a lot of people. right? A team consists of a lot of people, and an organization consists of a lot of teams, right? So given the case, you have to interact with a lot of people, get your work done. Like for example, and every work is codependent, is dependent on one another. Some person has to kind of get the data, give it to you. Somebody has to analyze and give you the takeaways or the main pointers from that, and then somebody creates a idea or a plan around it, and then somebody presents it, somebody markets it, and there is a finance department which allocates, right? So all these things, there are a lot of teams, lot of people, lot of roles, and there has to be cooperation between each other, right? You must have that ability to work with each of these aspects, each of these people, each of these positions. You must have that ability to get the required information in time, right? You cannot sit and wait. You cannot sit on your desk and wait for the other person to give you what is needed for you to do your job. You must go to them, get the work, get the information that you need, and then start working. That's collaboration for you. Okay. Now, what are the questions that you can ask as an interviewer to check somebody's collaboration skills? Or if you are a person attending an interview, what are the questions that you get asked to, kind of assess your collaboration skills? One, give an example of when you had to work with someone who was difficult to get along with. How did you handle interactions with that person? You might not like another person that you're working with, but you still have to work with them. So, how do you work? That's what this question asks, right? Tell me about a time when you were communicating with someone and they did not understand you. What did you do? Right? You must give information, receive information. But when there is that miscommunication happening, maybe in terms of language, maybe in terms of, cultural differences, how did you manage to communicate? How did you manage to give information or get information? Right? This helps in understanding how good are you at collaborating, how good are you at kind of, managing these initial hiccups, right? And tell me about one of your favorite experiences working with a team and your contribution. What do you like the most about working in a team? And what is your ideal contribution, or how do you want to contribute towards it? Are you satisfied with how you're contributing towards your particular team? If there is something that you want to improve, what is it? Right? Describe the best partner or supervisor whom you have worked with. What part of their managing style appealed to you? Is there someone that you look forward for in your organization? Uh, okay. There is a question, Ms. Selvi. Yes, I'll try to give you the PPT, ma'am. Okay. So it's like, there's something like, is there a particular manager or a supervisor that you look forward for? If yes, what are the aspects about that person that you like? Right. So these are some of the questions. Like, if you like to work with someone, what is it? What is an like some of the questions could be something like, what is an ideal work day for you? What is an ideal team for you? Right? That says like, what are the things that you look forward for in a team, and how good are you at getting your work done? Can you share the experience where a project dramatically shifted directions at the last minute? What did you do? This can be a question about collaboration as well as about adaptability. If there is a last minute change, how are you going to change or shift or change things, right? There's a last minute shift. Maybe you're working on a particular data, okay, and you have completed almost 80-85% of the task. All of a sudden, there is a change in terms of the data. Now you have to work on a new set of data. How quick are you at switching from that to this? That's your question of collaboration as well as a question of your adaptability. Okay, so this is one of the important soft skills that I look forward for. So what all have we covered so far? We have covered adaptability, one, right, in the first aspect. Second, culture. Third, collaboration. Now, the fourth one is leadership. This is in terms of senior roles, right? Senior roles as well as when you're getting hired for the initial positions also. It's like when a company, this is both for the interviewers and the interviewees. When you hire a candidate or when an organization hires you, they're not just hiring you for an immediate basis. They're not just looking at you of how you will work in the next coming few months or the next coming few years, but they will also be checking in terms of whether if you're capable enough of handling leadership roles, whether if you are a person capable enough of taking up the role of a TL a few years later, right? So you're also being assessed for your leadership capability. Okay. So now what are the questions that as an interviewer you can ask to check somebody's leadership skills? And as an interviewee, what are the questions that you get asked if they want to check your leadership skills? One, tell me about the last time something significant didn't go according to plan at work. What was your role? What was the outcome? When things did not go how it was planned, what did you do about it? How did you handle it? Describe a situation where you needed to persuade someone to see things your way. What steps did you take? What were the results? When somebody wasn't able to see your point of view, or when somebody was opposing your suggestion, how did you make them agree to your proposal? How did you handle it? How did you convince them? Okay. Give me an example of a time when you felt you led by example. What did you do and how did others reacted? Okay. Give us an example when you felt like, you had to act rather than, being passive. It was the time when you had to act and showcase that this can be done this way. Was there any such situation? If yes, what was it? Okay. And Chaitra, what to answer if you haven't come across such situations? Be very clear about it, Chaitra. Tell them there is no such situation that I have faced so far, like how you just mentioned. But however, if I have to answer it in a hypothetical situation, if at all I'm put in such a situation, I would be handling it this way. Like I said, be honest, be clear. Say, I haven't faced such situations in my previous experience. But however, if I have to answer your question in a hypothetical manner, if at all I'm put in such a situation, I will do this. Okay. Be very clear about it. Not an issue. Be honest about things. Okay. Next question is like, tell me about the toughest decision you had to make in the last 6 months. What is the toughest decision that you have taken so far and how do you feel about it? Right? Have you ever had to sell an idea to your coworkers or group? How did you do it? What are the results? Right? If you had to convince your team members or your group to agree to a particular suggestion or an idea, how did you make it happen? Right? As a leader, you're expected to lead by example. As a leader, you are expected to convince, like sell your ideas, make people understand or see your point of view. Right? You have to help others, take them along with you. You have to ensure your team reaches its goal. So these are some of the leadership traits, right? So your questions will be based around these. These questions that we saw just now, the 5 questions are very clear. These are checking the leadership qualities or trying to assess your leadership qualities. Okay. The 4th aspect of soft skills, leadership, adaptability, culture, leadership. What was the previous one? Collaboration. Okay. Let's move ahead for the 5th one, the growth potential. That is, how much of potential do you have to grow in your career? Right? Obviously, nobody wants to hire a candidate who just wants to sit in the initial position for a long time. You have to move ahead. You have to grow. You have to learn. Growth involves a bit of struggle. Growth involves a bit of effort. And you must showcase that you are willing to put in that effort. Okay. Now let's see. What are the questions that gets asked that the interviewers can ask to check somebody's growth potential? And what are the questions that gets asked for interviewees, people who are attending interviews to check their growth potential? First, recall a time when your manager was unavailable when a problem arose. How did you handle the situation? With whom did you consult? This question I discussed it earlier. Remember? Tell about a situation wherein your manager was on leave, but still there was a client who needed a quick resolution. How did you handle that situation? What did you do about it? Right? This is about taking decisions. This is about growing beyond the circle or the beyond the boundaries of your particular position. How are you going to look at challenges? How are you going to look at opportunities to grow? Okay. Describe a time when you volunteer to expand your knowledge at work as opposed to being directed to do so. Rather than somebody directing you to do something to improve your knowledge about a specific thing, Did you take initiative towards it? That, probably there is a programming language that you're working on, and for the fact that, it's going to change in the next couple of years. Probably it's like there is another programming language that's going to quickly take over the one that you're currently working on. So how quick were you in terms of, shifting to that, understanding that, convincing the management to give you training in terms of the new program, because that's going to take over, right? Let's take the example of ChatGPT. Many of the people working in the content sphere, right? You're happy working around it, but the ChatGPT or the AI is going to take over. So did you convince or did you take up certifications with respect to, your ChatGPT or AI? Have you done some certifications, or did you convince your organization to provide such, training, right? So these are some of the things that showcases how attuned is your mind towards growth. Okay. What would motivate you to make a move from your current role? If you have to choose another role, if you have to choose another position in the organization, in another team, what would that be and why? I'm just giving you an alternative question that can get asked. Okay. When was the last occasion you asked for a direct feedback from a superior? Why? Right? Feedback is very important. Okay. And also taking that feedback in the right way is very important. Firstly, asking for that feedback is in itself a nice move, and taking that feedback in the right way is another important aspect for it. Okay. So if there is a situation when you went and asked someone to give you a feedback, if yes, what was the feedback given and how did you handle it? Okay. Okay. Next, last question is, what's the biggest career goal you have ever achieved? Did you ever have a goal that you wanted to achieve in your career? If yes, what was it? How did you achieve it? And what was your feeling once you achieved it? Right? So that showcases how much of, that urge do you have in yourself to grow, right? So that's about your growth potential. That's something that, the organizations will look forward for. And also many HRs are here. So when you're hiring a candidate, you have to hire them not for the current position, but also you have to look at it if they are capable enough of handling the future positions or positions that are higher than this. So assessing growth potential is extremely important. Okay. Assess to end the meeting. Okay, fine. Let's move ahead to the next question. Okay. How to screen for prioritization? Prioritization is one of the very important things. Okay. What do I mean by prioritization? See, on a daily basis, as an individual, as a professional, you will have a lot of tasks. There is something called as the Pareto's principle. Okay. What it says is, amongst the tasks that you do daily, there are 20% of the tasks that will give you 80% of the results. Okay. And there are 80% of the tasks that you do, which gives only 20% of the results. So the smartness here that a person has to showcase is prioritizing those 20% of the tasks that gives you 80% results. Okay, like for example, there are say a 10 tasks involved and you are concentrating on doing 8 tasks and 8 tasks will give you just 20% of the result. And the last 2 tasks, the 20%, two tasks that you have to do will give you 80% of the result. If you are a person who understands prioritization, if you are a person who understands which tasks have to be prioritized, you will prioritize the 20% of the tasks or the 2 tasks that will give you 80% of the results. And this is very important because it saves time, right? Not just for the professional, but also for the organization, right? So prioritization is one thing that they're looking forward for a lot in today's organization. So prioritization is one of the skills that you have to look forward for. Okay. So what are the questions that can get asked when somebody has to check for your prioritization? Tell me about a time when you had to juggle several projects at the same time. How did you organize your time? What was the result? When you had to perform a lot of projects, when you were working on many projects parallelly, how did you manage, right? And tell me about a project that you planned. How did you organize and schedule the tasks, right? Can you provide one situation or example, 20% effort to get 80% of the results? Okay, fair enough. Chaitra, like for example, you're working on a particular project. Okay, and there are certain tasks that are involved with respect to the project. Like, for example, let me take an example of you're working on parallel projects. One project which is almost nearing completion. Okay, only the last minute things are left up in that particular project. A few tasks, maybe a couple of things that you have to check and finalize. Okay, and there are many initial things happening in the other projects are in initial phases. So that involves a lot of, other works and collaboration and happening, and it will take its own time. Okay. So what happens? You are kind of excited. If a person doesn't understand prioritization, what they will think, the new project is exciting. There is a lot of collaboration and interaction involved. Obviously, new project will have a lot of meetings, will have a lot of, cross team discussions happening. So you will divert most of your time there in the new projects. So you're giving 80% of your time there, but it's not yielding any results as of now because it's still in its initial phase. On the other hand, the other project that you were working on, which is in the final stages, probably if you put 20% of your effort, it will be completed. And once it's completed, you can take the credit for it that you have worked on this particular project. It's done and dusted, and it goes to the higher, further scrutiny, right? So that's completed on your end. And when a project is completed, it's kind of, something that's off your head. You no need to worry about it. Gives a good impression, right? So that's about just 20% of work involved, but gives you a lot of results. New projects, there's a lot of things involved, but as of now, you will not see that result. So a person who understands prioritization will first complete that old project, which has only 20% of the work left, and then concentrate on the new one. Wherein a person who doesn't understand prioritization will completely be involved in the new project, ignoring the old one. Okay, it just needs a little bit of effort to complete. Have I cleared your doubt, Chaitra? Okay, thank you. Okay, so these are some of the examples. And what are the other questions that can get asked in terms of prioritization? Describe a time when you felt stressed or overwhelmed. How did you handle it? What are the things? What are the factors that gives you stress in terms of your job, and how do you handle it? How do you determine what amount of time is reasonable for a task? That is, realistic estimation of time is very important. If a task is going to take, say, a good 3 hours, you have to be very specific, 3 hours. But can you give your complete 3 hours there? No, there will be some emails, there'll be somebody asking for some other report, right? So you have to kind of analyze everything. So if it's 3 hours, it's going to be a 4 hours. Give time for other aspects. Do not be very idealistic. Be very practical. Okay, that's your realistic estimation of time. And that's one of the important aspect of prioritization. Okay, give an example of a time when you delegated an important task successfully. Prioritization, another important aspect is to delegate tasks, how to give your task to others. Okay. If you have something important, some important tasks that you're handling, how would you give those tasks to others? Okay. That's about your delegation. Okay. Last but not the least, last set of questions, creative questions. Okay. Out of the box questions that gets asked mostly to the leadership positions. Okay. And also it's like they can ask it to other entry level jobs also. Now, why do they ask these out of the box questions? Because they want to catch the the candidate off guard. Okay, they want to check when put a unexpected question. How are you going to react? How quick are you at analyzing and giving the right answer? How quick are you to think? How witty are you? How innovative, how creative are you in terms of thinking and answering these questions? Okay, that's why they ask out of the box questions. Now, quickly, if we have to see what are the out of the box questions that generally gets asked, how would you describe yourself in one word? Tell me about when you were a kid. Who did you want to be? What didn't you get a chance to include in your resume? What is the last thing you have learned on your job? On a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? Other questions would be something like, if you are given an opportunity to play the role of a protagonist in a movie, which would that be? Which cartoon character do you find yourself similar to? These are some of the out of the box questions that gets us just to check how quick are you at reacting to something that's unexpected. Adaptability, one of the things. Quickness, right? Creativity, these are the things that gets assessed here. Okay. Now, for interviewers, what helps you to identify the right candidate? What are the things that you have to pay attention to in order to hire the right candidate? One, the candidate's background and their experience. Two, their inclination. That is, what are they interested in? Okay. And what are they focused towards? Okay. Tenure and contribution, their experience, how have they contributed in their roles or previous roles? This is for people who are attending interviews also. If you have prior experience on working on projects or working in teams, be very clear in terms of saying how have you contributed in that particular role. Okay. Next, how quick have people achieved promotions or success in terms of their career, right? Somebody might take 2 years to get that promotion. On the other hand, somebody might be quick at getting it within 6 months. So these things also gives you an idea about the candidate's expertise or their potential. Okay. One focus or many projects. What is the candidate capable of? Whether he or she is a person who can concentrate on one particular task at a time, or are they someone who can handle multiple projects at a single time? And one quick tip here for all the people who are attending interviews, right? Most of the organizations look forward for candidates who can handle multiple projects at a single time. So if you have worked or if you have such an experience, highlight it in your resume. Okay, that's something that will give you that extra brownie point. Okay, basic expectations from a candidate would be something like the degree relevance, the technical knowledge that they have in terms of the industry, domain, right? And cultural fitment, right? How will they fit into this organization culture? Experience in terms of the role. Have they handled the role which is similar to this? How have they excelled in it, right? Ability to step up. If they haven't handled the role, this is for people who are freshers or attending interviews. Even if you do not have prior experience, even if you haven't handled such a role earlier, are you capable of handling it? Your task is to showcase that, yes, I'm capable of handling such a task. Okay, so that's one thing. That's the expectations, the basic expectations. Exceptions, means something that's not expected, but when it comes your way, you're thrilled or you're overwhelmed. What are these additional qualifications other than the ones that's just asked, basically asked? What is the extra qualification that you're coming with? Okay, extra responsibilities that you have handled. Like for example, a content team. It's not just enough that you are good at working with contents or creating content, but if you have the ability to market that content, social media content or marketing social media content, then it's an added advantage. So these are exceptions. Okay, and other industry experience if it's needed. Okay, so these are some of the things which are like expectations and exceptions. Okay, and this is specifically for the interviewers, right? You have to, it's like I said earlier at the beginning of the session, it's not just about asking questions. It's also about giving information to the candidates. It's also for the people who are attending interviews. You can always ask questions like they ask, at the end of an interview, you will have a question like, do you have any questions to ask for me, right? Given the case, at such a situation, you can ask these questions. One, what's the nature of the job? As an interviewer, you have to explain the nature of the job, the skill sets that you want, okay, the pay. It's like, salary negotiation. I think Sandeep said about it in the beginning, right? Some organizations discuss it at the interview level. Some organizations discuss it at the later situation wherein the candidate has been already selected. So when this happens, the HR, I think the hiring person will clearly let you know. But whenever you have a scope for, asking about the salary or the paycheck, be very clear about it. Sandeep, one thing that I would like to tell you here is negotiation is good, salary negotiation. When you do not know what it is or how much is the thing, how much is the salary that they have fixed for this particular position, do ask them. What is the remuneration that you have fixed for this particular position? What is your budget for this particular position? That's the question that you can ask and get. That is like a scale from where you start your bargaining, because many a times it so happens, you might quote too high and the organization might not be willing for that. Given the case, always ask what's the budget that is kind of fixed for this particular position and start your bargaining from that point. Okay, HR will give you a genuine answer. They will not. Most of the time they will not. But we do not need genuine answer. We just want them to agree to whatever your proposal of the salary is, right? So that's our main thing. Let's not worry about whether they're going to give genuine answer. But to be very honest, they will not give you genuine answers. But just have that, do your basic research. Check what are the other organizations paying for similar positions. Okay, there are many portals wherein you can get that information. Fishbowl, Glassdoor, right? Take that, check for it, and then you can refer that. You can tell them, see, I've checked it in search portals. This is the salary that's being given in other organizations. So what I'm asking is not too much, or what I'm asking is a fair ask, right? You can start your bargaining there. You can use those references. Okay, and coming back to the slide, interviewers, you must give information about the benefits that the candidates will be getting, the working conditions, and also the information about your business. Okay, and people who are attending interviewees, you can ask questions with respect to these. Okay, now interview documentation. Let me quickly wrap. We hardly have a little bit of time, hardly have 1 minute, but then I'll extend it by another 2-3 minutes and try to complete this. Okay, people who are taking interviews, interview documentation, like I said, when you are taking interviews, these are the pointers that you have to clearly note. Okay, so that it will serve as a reference point for you to later compare different candidates. One, the name of the candidate, the role the candidate has interviewed for, the date and time of the interview, the questions that you asked to the interview, and how did the candidate respond. Okay, questions asked by the candidates and how did you respond to that. Okay, the one which we just discussed. If the interviewees, people attending interviews, ask questions, what questions did they ask and what did you answer? Okay, additional tests and tasks. Were there any tasks or tests that you give to the candidate? How did they perform in that? Apart from that, other observations and your opinion about the candidate. Other observations like, was the candidate confident? Is he or she showcasing growth potential? How do you feel about them? What is your opinion? They can be hired now, or they would require some training with respect to this. Whatever your point of view is, you have to clearly mention that. Okay. And that's not so important. Let me come back to feedback management. Okay, feedback is very important. Many a times it's like, it's recruiters who are taking the interviews, and you have to give feedback to your hiring manager or your hiring team. Okay, so you will give the documentation to your hiring team and have a detailed discussion. It depends from one organization to another. Some organizations will just want a document which showcases all your observations about candidates. Some will involve in a detailed discussion about it. Okay, so whatever it is, you have to give your feedback. Feedback is what are your observations and whatever we mentioned in the documentation. Okay, and this another aspect, feedback for candidates. You will not give a feedback to candidate until and unless they ask for it. And not all candidates will ask for it. Some will ask for it. And in case they ask, you have to give it, and you have to give it in a balanced way, right? Tell them. It's like, though you fulfilled all the technical requirements, somewhere we felt there was a lag in terms of, or there was a short, there was a lag, or these qualities were not fulfilled, or we felt you could have better qualities in terms of these. That's why we had to hire another position, hire another candidate. Okay, so you can be very, you have to be very diplomatic. You have to be genuine. You have to be honest about it. Okay, and you have to say it in a balanced way. You cannot kind of, discourage someone. You cannot put off somebody's interest, but you have to give it in a constructive way in which, they can build upon it. Okay, so that's one way of giving feedback to candidates. Why is it important for companies to give feedback, or for companies to take feedback from hiring managers? They can make crucial decisions on hiring. Okay, whether if they want to hire this candidate or not, they will get to know the efficiency of the hiring process, the process that they're following. Is it right, or do they need to kind of improve the method that's already there? Organizations will understand that. Okay, and for the people attending interviews, it will give them an idea about their performance, the points where they have to improvise on. Okay, and also it helps organizations to bring to, kind of brand advocacy. like build advocacy and sentiment. Like I spoke about this earlier. When you have a good experience, when you leave an interview with a feeling good factor, then you have obviously kind of, have that sentimental factor towards it. You will say to someone else, I attended interview in this particular organization and it was conducted so well. I'm impressed. I did not get through, but hopefully I'll get through later. Or if you're looking for a particular position, then there is an open position. You can give it. I feel the organization culture is good. You're showcasing your organization culture via the interview also. So it's important to give feedback. Okay. So that's one thing. And last but not the least, some of the do's and don'ts of giving feedback. Keep your feedback concise, means short, and give actionable feedback. Something, constructive criticism, something on which the person who's taking the feedback can act upon. Okay. Cover the whole hiring process. What were the various stages? Give a complete picture about it. Get the timings right. Give it at the right timing, not soon after the interview is complete, right? The candidate has to come back to you, ask, and give it then. Do not make them wait for a long time. Give it back immediately. Okay. So that's one thing. That's what I mean when I say get the timing right. Okay. Last, what should not you not do while giving feedbacks? Don't give feedback without being sure whether if it will be valued. Only if it asked, give it then. If not, do not give. And candidates also, people who are attending interviews, only if you ask, you will get a feedback. If not, you will not get. If you think you need a feedback, you performed well, but still you were not selected, then you can ask for a feedback to understand where exactly was the shortcoming. Okay. And don't allow personal biases to figure in the picture. Very important, like we discussed in the earlier section, right? At the beginning of the session, human beings, we have a lot of biases, but you have to maintain that objectivity. So ensure when you're giving feedback also that bias doesn't figure out. Okay. With this, I think I'll be ending the session, but let me keep it open. If you have any specific questions, you can kindly post it here. Okay. Do we have any specific questions or shall we call it a day? If you have any questions, kindly ask. No questions? Shall we end it? Okay. Fine. I'm ending the session for now. I think Miss Selvi, right? Yes, Miss Selvi, you asked for the presentation. I'll ensure that somebody gets back to you and gives you the presentation. Okay. Thank you so much, Melvin. Thank you, everyone. Chaitra, how to be confident on the day when you're feeling a bit depressed on personal reasons. Okay. Personal reasons. See, it's like, as I said, human beings at the end of the day, you will be depressed for one or the other thing. You will be feeling low. Highs and lows are common. But, one thing is, if you can kind of prepone or postpone your interview so that your mood factors will not affect, that can be done. One. If not, okay, try to what we call as practice mindfulness. What we call as mindfulness means what? Be present at that particular situation. Okay, you are attending an interview, just concentrate on the interview. Do not try to kind of get your mind around everywhere. If you are attending the interview but thinking about something that has happened, then obviously it's going to affect your confidence. So the thing is, be present in the present. What we call as mindfulness, practice that. When you're attending an interview, your mind is fixed only to the interview, not thinking about anything else. Okay, it's a bit difficult. It will take you a bit of training to kind of training your mind to understand and do things. So that can be done. If not, like I said, if you can postpone the interview so that you're in a better mood, you can attend it well, that can be done. Okay, Chatra, hopefully I have helped you in this. Harleen, thank you. Thank you. So let me end the session now. Yes, Chatra. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you all. Bye.